Amit, you start, and then Mr. Tataras will take the floor, and then Stevens, we have not located him yet, and Yanis Grigoriou is coming at the end. Okay. It's going to be short. So please go ahead.
So I thought what to discuss in this extended panel, I think most important for us to realize at this stage, and the general topic is oil and gas. We need further exploration of oil and gas for this transit period, because what's going to happen, and in fact it is happening, since began, I think, the midst of the last decade, the negative sentiment against fossil fuels in general brought international oil and gas companies, as well as small and domestic companies, to decrease investments in oil and gas exploration. And now with the cyclical trend of oil and gas exploration and prices, of course, in a period where there is a low oil and gas exploration, usually a high pricing period of fossil fuels. So the next period can be 5, 6, 7 years later, there is a relative shortage and then increasing prices. So the question is, how would we like to see the transition taking place? Would we like to see very high prices for oil and gas, which would really make the affordability of oil and gas that is distillate with the transportations and gas for power generation and for heating and for all the other uses, very, very high prices and non-affordable or very difficult to afford to many, many people, or sentiment should change in this regard, that oil and gas companies and others will invest more to enable relatively more modest prices in the future. The interest of major oil and gas companies right now, as we foresee that, is not to invest much as it used to be in the past. They are happy in lower production with higher prices. So there is always this optimum and the equilibrium on behalf of the oil and gas industry in general, the private sector, public companies, international public companies, or the state-owned companies in OPEC countries and others. What should be the equilibrium in this respect? The second thing that I'd like to discuss very, very briefly is what is the mechanism to enable us to fasten the transition, or basically facilitate the transition. And the major economic means is carbon taxation. Carbon taxes, which the European Union are leading in this respect, and 1st of January 2026, which is tomorrow, less than 2.5 years from now, where compulsively, basically, all European countries and border taxation, border carbon taxation is going to be imposed. So basically, the EU, as a leader in this respect in the world, is leading the way, and in fact creating the mechanisms which many, many countries, in fact all the countries in the world which would like to trade with the EU, if they are not going to impose those exact or similar taxes domestically, carbon taxations on carbon dioxide emissions of natural gas utilization, of petroleum in transportations and the industry and all other utilization. So the products that the countries are going to export to Europe are going to be taxed, and the high excess tax is going to be imposed, carbon border tax. So basically what we're starting to see, the process in many, many countries, including China, the most important exporter to all around the world, including to Europe, and Turkey, and even my own country, even the governments are not up to speed in regulating domestic carbon taxation. This is the industry which is requesting and demanding and basically telling governments we need to have domestic carbon taxation, because otherwise we are going to pay carbon border tax to the European Union or lose this market, which is still a very important market. So carbon taxation will enable also carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Because if this is gas turbine, a combined cycle gas turbine, and they'll need to pay 100 and in the future 150 euros per ton, because these are the goals that the European Union achieves per ton of carbon dioxide emitted to the earth. And these days already carbon capture technologies depend on what cost between $40 to $200 to curtail 1 ton of carbon. Depends on the technology. If the straightforward technologies, the carbon capture utilization, carbon capture, that is storage, utilizing depleted oil and gas fields or underground aquifers, relatively new, or, as I mentioned yesterday, the utilization, production of cement, production of fertilizers, production of various types of minerals from carbon dioxide. I believe that utilization is going to play a major role, and not only, in addition, not only capturing carbon dioxide in power plants, in industries, and so on and so forth, but also capturing carbon dioxide from the air. And you see already several technologies which are utilizing various types of new technologies in this respect. So I'm going to finish here and say basically the carbon taxation is a very, and trade of carbon emissions is most likely the most important economic mean in deal to facilitate the energy transition, and therefore later on also to facilitate faster penetration of renewables, of clean transportation, and of carbon captured utilizations, which are all means to achieve the goal of net zero by 2050. Thank you.
Before you complete your intervention, I'd like to ask you a crucial question. Israel has been the leader in East Mediterranean, apart from Egypt, of course, in promoting and developing natural gas and hydrocarbons in general. And I think your example has been followed by Cyprus and also Greece to a certain extent. So we've heard very well what you said about the need of carbon tax. We couldn't agree more, because this is a basis for developing the industry. But in my mind is, what is your government's commitment to further exploration of natural gas or hydrocarbons in view of the targets for net zero and all that, and also in view that you have already developed an industry which you see working because your applications are there. As you said yesterday, 70% of the industry is using gas. So what is the commitment of Israel's government to further explore hydrocarbons?
So thank you for this question. So the government is committed in this respect that next month, June, by the end of June, submittal date for the 4th round of oil and gas exploration offshore. And there are several international oil and gas companies that are interested in participating. We'll see, including, as was published.
Which round will this be?
This is the 4th round. And basically, until now, there are only Chevron, in fact, and partners, found gas offshore Israel. The largest fields, the Leviathan fields, the Tamar fields, and Chevron and partners, Delek sold to Energean, the smaller fields of Karish Tanin. And Energean, last year, 2022, made 3 drills, each of them a discovery, a modest discovery, 5 to 7 BCM, very modest, but it shows that there is more likelihood of additional finding. And the next tender, which is going to indeed submittal next month. So various international companies are interested or show interest, including Total, Eni, and others as published, and possibly ADNOC and others from the Gulf as well. We'll see who is going to participate. The current civil unrest in Israel, as you may follow, and I just mentioned that yesterday, the anti-democratic wave and so on of Netanyahu's government and so on, is raising concern, I would say, by international oil and gas companies. Also, in my discussion with them, those companies are active in the most, I would say, dictatorship and non-democratic ways. But anyway, companies request stability. Companies want to see regulation in place. And once government is shaking and the future of the regime is not so sure, so it's also a concern.
Thank you very much. I think you answered fully the question. We can see there is commitment there. So, Mr. Tartaras, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I have a short presentation about the latest updates in the Greek upstream sector. Before actually proceeding with that, I would just like to have a couple of introductory slides about HEREMA. Maybe some of you don't know us, as we actually had a company transformation from last year. So we used to be HHRM, Hellenic Hydrocarbon Resources Management, and now we are HEREMA because we have also the energy resources management as well, which include offshore wind, we will see in the next slide. So the goal, our goals are based on 3 pillars, basically accelerating the upstream exploration in Greece, expanding into the new energy technologies, supporting the energy transition, and of course, improving the corporate governance of the company. So, and this is the last introductory slide. So 3 roles to sum up. So the first one, it has always existed, oil and gas exploration and production. So we are overseeing this activity in Greece. Plus, we are the Offshore Safety Authority since 2017. And since April last year, we are now responsible also for CCS. We are basically responsible for issuing exploration and storage permits for CCS and also for potentially storage of other gases and liquids in the future, who knows, hydrogen, for example. And from July last year, we're also the competent authority for developing the national plan for the offshore wind farms in Greece, which is also a major pillar. There's a large goal of 2.7 giga until 2030. And since I will not refer anymore to CCS, just a couple of words, because Mr. Vlasopoulos actually referred a lot to it. We agree with what he said, and there is a need to basically mature the business model in Greece and the regulatory framework. We have published a white paper on that, and we are working actively on this. Plus, we are the implementation agent for the RRF funding of the first such project in Greece that is planned for the Prinos depleted reservoir in northern Greece. All right, and now moving on purely to oil and gas exploration. So this is actually the plan that was announced after the oil and gas exploration projects were declared projects of national interest by, last year by the Prime Minister, and it was quite aggressive, quite optimistic plan, I would say. And we are very happy that we are actually ahead of the plan until now. So you see here all the green ticks basically there. They are all the seismic surveys that have been completed in all practically offshore blocks that are active right now. So in Crete, in the Ionian Sea, so Block 2, Block 10, Ionian, and so forth. And this year, we have basically the processing interpretation going on, and from next year, we'll start to see decisions about potential drilling. The most mature block is an onshore block in Ioannina, where basically we expect drilling end of this year or beginning of next year to start. So, to sum up the progress that has been made, last year, 7 seismic surveys were completed, as opposed to just 2 surveys in the previous 8 years, almost. The investments of the LCs increased by 150%. And at the same time, and this is very, very important for Greece, but also in the climate where we live in the framework of the European Union, with the strictest environmental standards. Actually, we are very proud of this, and we really thank our investors, the LSEs, that they have applied these standards that are higher than even the best ones in Europe, better than what you would find in Norway, for example, for seismic surveys. We also, very, very important, successfully defended the strategic environmental impact assessment studies for the Crete blocks that was actually at the State Council. This is very, very important. It gives a lot of stability to the investors. As I said, seismic data processing is ongoing. It should be completed by the end of 23, and within 24 we expect the decisions. And the first exploration well in Ioannina, as I said. Now, let's see in numbers, this accelerated exploration program. So in terms of seismic mapping, we had almost 11 times increase in the area covered by the seismic surveys. And in terms of investments, almost twice as much investment in 2022 alone compared to the previous 8 years. In terms of the budget itself, you will see that in 2019 was the previous highest number, highest budget before the pandemic hit, and the expenses, the investments were reduced in the following years, and then we had a very high increase in 2022. And very, very important, I would like to actually note that, is that last year we had almost the full percentage of the budgeted investments actually materialized. So 97% of the budget was indeed materialized. And here we see some more graphs. In terms of exploration expenditure per exploration year, it was increased by 1.3 from 2019, which was the previous highest, and per active license 2.2 compared to 2019. So we basically have large increase everywhere, and we are very, very optimistic for the future. And the last slide, just giving you a little bit, sorry, there's some transition here, giving you some more detail about the active blocks. So as I said, here in the northwest, I don't know if you can see, yeah, in the northwest, in the Ioannina block, this is the active onshore block, and it is the most mature. We expect the drilling to start soon there. And then in the offshore blocks, we have had 3D seismic in Block 2, operated by Energean and with partners Hellenic Energy. And this was actually an upgraded program. The original program called for 2D seismic. Instead, we had 3D seismic acquired. Then in the Ionian block and in the Block 10, that are 100% licensed by Hellenic Energy, operated by Hellenic Energy. We had both 2D surveys in the beginning of 2022 and 3D surveys immediately at the end of 2022, January 2023 completed. So again, much ahead of schedule, and we're very, very happy about this. And finally, last but not least, of course, the two blocks, southwest and west of Crete, where basically we have ExxonMobil as the operator and Hellenic Energy as partner. Also very happy because a very dense 2D survey was completed in February this year. So this is basically, these are the developments in all the blocks. I think the upstream sector in Greece is in good shape. There is political will to advance. Of course, always respecting the environmental standards and always with the goal of the energy transition. We do see, we agree with the previous speakers, we do see especially gas hand in hand with the renewables for providing energy security. Thank you.
Thank you, Efthymios, for presenting, for covering such a lot of work in a very short time, and excellent presentation. Thank you. We have a much better idea of what's happening. Greece has many places where things are happening, and you managed to combine this all together. So it's really very valuable, the work you have done. And I'm taking this advantage to say how happy we are that as ENA, we're cooperating with EDEP HEREMA. We just completed a major study on roadmap for CCUS applications in Greece. This will be reported later in June, but HEREMA was one of the 5 companies which participated in this multi-client study, the objective being to come up with a roadmap over the next 10, 12 years of how CCUS applications will actually happen in Greece. So we now go, do we have Mr. Stevens? No? Okay, so we go to Mr. Grigoriou, Yannis Grigoriou. He will focus on Cyprus. We didn't have somebody from Cyprus actually working there. Yannis is very familiar, and we are going to listen what's happening in Cyprus on oil and gas. Yannis, good morning.
Good morning, Kostis. Many thanks for the invitation. Unfortunately, I was not able to be with you today, but I'll try to do that. I'll share my screen. Hope that you can see it. Yes? Can I go ahead?
Yes, yes, we can see it clearly.
Okay, so I'm trying in a short time to discuss how East and Southeast Mediterranean could secure the European natural gas supplies. And okay, I'll skip the first slide discussing for the demand of natural gas in Europe, since I think that all of us will accept that this is a need. And the thing is that how EU will replace the gas supply disruption from Russia. And one way is to look for indigenous gas resources, especially in the Mediterranean Sea. So I'm not going to tell a lot about Greece. Themis and Mr. Vlasopoulos told a lot, just to focus on the further step, which is the processing and interpretation of the acquired seismic. And the thing is how we'll ensure that the 40 geological structures that have already mapped from the legacy data will be ensured that they are there. And the next step is to drill them. If it is like that, and based on different studies, amongst one is one by IEN last year, the potential natural gas resources in the country could be up to 2 to 2.5 trillion cubic meters, a huge amount of natural gas. If we move a bit further southeast to Cyprus, the Cypriot government has licensed more than 8 blocks into majors, ExxonMobil, Total Energies, Eni, Chevron, Qatar Energy are there. They have sought seismic all over the blocks, 2D and 3D, and drilled more than 10 wells. The outcome of that is that 5 fields have been discovered. The one is the big one, the Aphrodite, which is bordering with Israel. The other is Calypso, Kronos, Zeus, and Glaucos at blocks 6 and 10. And these are totaling about 400 BCM. So if we add on that those discovered so far in Israel and Egypt, we could have another amount of about 4,000 BCM in Southeast Mediterranean. What's going on in Cyprus? There are full-speed exploration there. PGS, the seismic company, has completed the first phase of a project called Cyprus Vision, which actually is a reprocessing and integration of all the 3D surveys that have been shot around the island. The next is that the well Aphrodite 3 is ongoing. This well will appraise the natural gas field Aphrodite, operator is Chevron there, to proceed further for development, while Eni and Total Energies are working on a fast-track development for Block 6, where they have 3 discoveries smaller than Aphrodite, Calypso, Kronos, and Zeus. Energean, on the other hand, is considering to pipe the Israeli gas field, the one that will not supply the local market in Israel, to Cyprus, and then to build a small LNG plant to transport that to Europe. And this also has a political support, as the ministers of energy of Cyprus and Israel announced that last week. But what remains to see is on Monday, there is a meeting called by Minister of Energy of Cyprus. All the oil companies are invited there, the companies that are in the country, and we'll discuss the next steps. And it seems that the governmental energy policy of the new government is that to speed up production of natural gas. But there is a threat in the area. Unfortunately, the first map you can see in white line are an official EU map where you can see the exclusive economic zones of Greece and that declared from Cyprus. According to the international law, unfortunately, our neighbors do not respect this international law, granting blocks to TPAO, who also has sought seismic illegally in exclusive economic zone, which belongs to Cyprus and Greece. But let's go back to the reality. We have the Nile Delta, we have the Levantine Basin and the Eratosthenes Mountain Basin in that southeast Mediterranean. In Greece, north of Anatolia Fault, the continuation of Albanian fields to Greece and the continuation of the Italian Apuliat platform to Ionian, and of course the Mediterranean ridge and its inner plateau, which are the inner plateau under exploration by ExxonMobil as we speak, and of course the Herodotus Basin. And all that stuff, which is mainly in exclusive economic zone of European Union countries, is unexplored. And so remains to see, especially between Crete, Rhodos, and Cyprus, with what is the potential for natural gas. And we think that based on the so far data, there is enough gas resources that could feed Europe, and Greece and Cyprus as EU member states could play a significant role on that. So how to monetize? Of course, there is a big question, a challenging one, how you could monetize and transport that from Southeast Mediterranean to Europe. The East Med pipeline, a major project of importance to the European Union. The existing natural, the Egyptian LNG plants in Itku and Davieta, and the new, as we understand, LNG plant in Cyprus are solutions to that. But of course, for the stability, peace, and prosperity in the area, all the countries must comply and respect international laws and treaties and the exclusive economic zones. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing us up to date on what's happening in Cyprus, but also providing the broader picture of the area. Inevitably, you referred to the differences between Greece and Turkey, but hopefully there is hope there because both countries are now going, they're having the second election round. So by early June, July, hopefully we'll have two strong governments. And both governments have said they want after this to start discussions, so negotiations, and hopefully all these gray lines will diminish. But the important thing, as you pointed out, is that the region is still unexplored. There's a lot of potential, and I think we have covered a lot of ground between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus, so we have a very good global picture of what's happening. And that's the important thing to keep, that the whole area has a lot more to deliver in terms of hydrocarbon reserves, etc. So do we have Mr. Stevens? Sorry. We had asked Chris Stevens to join us because he was going to talk about Libya. He's very knowledgeable on what's happening in Libya. And Libya is very important to East Mediterranean and Southeast Europe because it's the nearest country with a lot of oil and gas, primarily oil. And Libyan oil has been traditionally going on to refineries in our area. It's good quality oil, and it's a very secure type of oil source. But anyway, hopefully we're having his presentation, and we're going to include this in the proceedings. So in the few minutes we have in our disposal, I would like to, we have this question. We have Israel on the one side, which is a proven producer. You started back in 2007, right? 2006 with the Leviathan. You started then producing with Tamar and then Leviathan. So you have built an industry. We have Greece, which has undergone various phases, but now we see that the exploration effort is in place and advancing fast. And we have Cyprus, which has undergone exploration. We have proven reserves, but they have not started yet producing. So I'll start with you, Amit. How do you see the next phase in the region shaping up?
So, first, it's excellent, and this platform that you're providing us, Kostis, should be appreciated again and again throughout the years. Discuss Israel is going its own course. I mean, as discussed already, the export quota is limited to 400 BCM. Half of that is already devoted. Chevron and the partners are targeting Egypt, especially the domestic Egyptian market, which is striving for more gas, and also some more gas for the liquefaction plants in Damietta and Idku for more liquefaction, especially to European and Turkish market. But this is limited to 17 BCM, those two plants. Now, Eni and Shell, which are the operators and the major owners of those plants, are reconsidering maybe to expand those plants, which will take 4, 5, 6 years to do, once there is more gas in the region. And that's a major question vis-a-vis the development of more export via LNG from Egypt. Okay. The other issue is that's the route that Israel, Chevron and the companies are going, is floating LNG from Israel.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. 1 minute statement from you, Thimios, and 1 minute statement from you, Yanis.
Yes. I'm not sure.
Try. Yes.
No? No. All right. I think that it's very important, the cooperation between all the countries in the region, in my opinion, because, for example, Greece has a lot to learn from countries that are already producing or that they are trying to develop their fields, like Cyprus in this case. And I think in order to bring what we will find, hopefully, to the market, we need solutions that involve all countries. That's crucial. And those aspects are just things like ports. That's a very important aspect
to service
for Greece.
exploration
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yanis, you have some experience with ports. 1 minute statement.
My statement is that I am convinced and I am optimist that this part of the world will be the next energy supplier for gas, not only for Europe, but for Europe, I think that will give us the opportunity to overcome the disruption from Russia and the depleting from the gas fields in North Sea. So I think that Mediterranean will be the next pool for gas. So we need, as you told Kostis, to discuss and cooperate with all the countries around the region to go ahead for sake of the prosperity of the countries.
Thank you very much, and thank you for saying this last phrase, all the countries in the region. Who is missing from this table? Turkey. So we hope at the next dialogue, the next conference, we're going to have Turkey along with us. As you know, Yudakul, we've asked TPAO to come. Obviously, it's a difficult period for them. They have made a major discovery in the Black Sea, and they are exploring. TPAO is a very important company. And we hope that in the next dialogue, we're going to have TPAO or somebody else who is going to talk extensively on what Turkey is doing in oil and gas and why it is doing this, because there are very valid reasons for this. And this will help us obtain a much better idea of what's happening in the area. But of course, Yardim yesterday, I think, broached the subject. You're going also to talk about this later today. But in this oil and gas roundup, yes, Turkey should be here, and we hope next time we're going to have somebody from Turkey around the table. So please relay this welcome message to them, as you have always done. So,
comment, if
yes,
I may, Kostis, vis-a-vis the development of the Cypriot gas sector. And this is the message that I'm trying to convey to Mr. Erdogan in the past year and so forth, because the Cypriot gas development, in many respects, is a hostage to Mr. Erdogan's negative ambitions in this respect. So an East Med gas pipeline, in my mind, can be developed based especially on Cypriot gas, that is Cyprus, Crete, Greece, southern Italy, plus an extension to Turkey.
Okay.
And that's the idea, that's the message, and
Okay.
hopefully we'll be able together to develop this assets.
Okay. I'll need to close this, to run this session, complete this. Thank you very much for your participation. Now we go to the next session with Mr. Nakov being the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you.